Look, if as you can tell, if you listen to my last segment, you can tell that at this point I'm frustrated. I'm very, 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 very frustrated. And I think that's the sentiment for uh, a lot of Americans at this point. But let's actually speak to what the problem is right now and what the problem has been for months. The problem is and has been Senate Republicans. Period, point blank. I talked very recently about one specific Senate Republican, the leading Senate Republican, Mitch McConnell, and how him and his pause for the cause of killing and destroying the American economy singularly, he is the ringleader. But as a whole, these Senate Republicans, specifically the ones who are not up for reelection, they all be damned. Seriously. They are the problem. Okay? Here's the deal. Here is the deal. I mentioned again, Nancy Pelosi is running around here getting people high on the crack pipe of hope and change. But the problem is not that, oh, we just need a few days, and oh, if we had a few more days, and oh, if I talk to Steve Mnuchin, and oh, if I talk to the president. You, Steve Mnuchin, and the president, Nancy Pelosi, can't make this happen by yourselves. You need Senate Republicans on board. And point blank, period, the problem is that Senate Republicans, there are not enough of them who are willing to vote for big spending packages. Period. As I say, period. Like, really, there is not enough of them to go along with your plan. So again, no matter how many times you and Steve meet, no matter how much the Republican president says, "Oh, I'll corral them," he hasn't been able to corral them to this point. So what in God's green earth, on God's green earth, makes any of us think that he can get them for something that's even more money? He can't. They have said, look, like, I don't have high blood pressure. I think I'm too young for that, but I'm well on my way when I think about this. I say all the time, a life lesson that I have learned hands down is do not believe what people tell you. Believe what they show you. And what Senate Republicans are showing us is that they don't give a damn. They don't give a hoot. They don't give a snoot. They don't care. Let it burn. Let them file bankruptcy, as Mitch McConnell has said. Again, Mitch McConnell, the leading Senate Republican, his words, let them file bankruptcy. Do you think he cares? No, because his solution for you, for the business down the street, for everyone you love, all the businesses you go to, just file bankruptcy. That is the problem. And in recent days, here's something that I want you to kind of think about too. In recent days, just how I mentioned in the previous segment, Mitch McConnell, his whole deal has been, hey, okay, well, we need to not focus on this right now. We need to focus on getting Amy Coney Barrett. Is that ABC? Yes, no, it's ACB. ACB. Oh, okay, anywho. See, I get sidetracked. We need to focus on getting her appointed to the Supreme Court. Okay? Excuse me. But here's something that I kind of want you to ponder. And when we brought back our podcast, I talked about and I questioned if I believe Nancy Pelosi is kind of being, or how people are kind of framing her as like this nefarious actor, right? And when you think nefarious, you think someone like sneaky and like they're doing something sneaky behind the scenes, and you hear them like chuckling and they're like in their trench coat, and you know what I mean? Like when I think of a nefarious actor, I kind of think of something like that. But okay, totally on a side note. So something that I think is pretty nefarious that we need to be thinking about in relation to Mitch McConnell is that he may be, when we connect the dots, think about what I said in the last segment and what I just said, that the problem is that he cannot corral Senate Republicans. He cannot do it, nor can the president do it. Okay, you have to understand these people, they run on an ideology of fiscal conservatism. Okay, but actually, when you look at their actual track records and what they're actually willing to support, again, look at people, what they do and not what they say. When you look at that, they are all for corporate welfare. They're not for individual welfare and helping the person. Through their belief in trickle down economics, they believe that if they help businesses as much as they can, not if they let the free market determine what happens with businesses, as much as they talk about the free market and, oh, free market this, they are not free market capitalists. They are corporate welfareists at like the highest level, right? So when you couple the fact that they pounce around and they prance around with, oh, we're conservatives, da, 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 and that's what they sell their base on. These people, they're not up for re-election. So they can keep going around and they can keep saying that, and they need to do that because that is the only way they are able to do what they do in terms of helping corporations. And so, kind of bringing myself back to this thought about Mitch McConnell, this kind of nefarious actor here, he is telling the American people, well, okay, put it like this. Politicians, most politicians, especially politicians who retain their political office as long as Mitch McConnell has, you don't do that by being a dummy. The dummies, they either don't get in or they get in and they are out as quickly as they are in, right? Mitch McConnell, as much as people talk about him being a turtle and as much as they talk about, oh, I'm Mitch McConnell, and as much as people do, that is not a dumb man, okay? And if you are out there and you're having those jokes, have at it, Haas, but at the same time, that man will intellectually run circles around so many people. How do you think that his core constituency, how could he get those people whose interests he works against on a consistent basis? How does he get those people to vote for him? You either have to believe that his constituency is really, really dumb, or you have to think that he is more intelligent in a way that he is able to manipulate them even when it works against them. But anywho, getting back to Mitch McConnell, this politician who was really intelligent, if he did not want us to know that his grand master plan, which sounds horrible, because one of the things that politicians are always aware of is perception, whether it be perception of, what people hear or what people think and how they kind of interpret that, because perception is super, super powerful when it comes to politics. Okay. But while most of us think it sounds utterly horrible that at a time where we are being ravaged by this pandemic in terms of our physical bodies, but also our economy, we think that it's horrible that he wants to focus on getting Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court. If he thought that the risks of you thinking that if that outweighed the benefits, trust and believe me, honey, he would not have made that out as a public statement. So that said, listen to my thought here on who I now am going to call nefarious McConnell, right? I honestly think that he put that statement out there, that Mitch McConnell is telling people that the focus is on getting Amy Coney Barrett, ACB, on the Supreme Court, not because that's even really well, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, because I think that as kind of a byproduct of focusing on doing this, he gets her on the Supreme Court, which ultimately helps conservative ideology and influence on our courts and court system and laws ultimately. But here's the deal. That is not mainly what he wants to do, right? He knows. He's a smart man. He knows he cannot secure the required votes to go ahead and get something passed. Think about it. Think about this. He said he's been saying for a while now, for the past few weeks, he has finally transitioned, because at first he was kind of a holdout on big stimulus, but then he finally came around and he himself said, look, if the president will agree to something, I'll agree to something too. What logical sense does it make if he is willing to support something? What logical sense, especially when you understand the dire need and urgency, which we know he does, because again, this man is not a dumb man. He understands, it makes no sense that he would work against the interests that not just help him politically, but his party. It makes no sense. The only reason that you have to take the route that he is doing is because you know you don't have a road to where you know you really need to go. That's all we're dealing with. He knows that many Senate Republicans are simply opposed to additional COVID-19 aid. Okay? And it has nothing to do with the Supreme Court. Obviously, yes, that's something that they want. That's, but this is kind of like the cover-up story. Anybody who says that they've never lied is a liar, and you are straight from the pit of hell, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as my Bible says. And the Bible says the truth is not in you, right? But here's the deal. Sometimes people lie to cover up another lie, right? The main lie here, again, is that Mitch McConnell cannot sell his base on at least enough of his base on the passage of a bigger stimulus. So, because he lies about the fact that they want stimulus when they really don't, he has to cover up that lie with the lie of, oh, well, we really just need to focus on the Supreme Court, and that's more urgent. You were covering up a lie with a lie, okay? And look, here's the deal. I'll even give you the benefit of the doubt that it's all about fiscal conservatism, okay? But here's the deal. I sound like Joe Biden, don't I? Here's the deal. Okay, here's the deal, right? There is a thin line between being fiscally conservative and just being flat out wrong, okay? Think about, and it boggles my mind that people like to compare like the budget of families to the budget of a federal government. Like, that is utterly insane. But if you look, for instance, at the familial level, and you look at someone who you think of as a saver, and as we kind of talk about fiscal conservatism, if someone is a saver and then you compare them to someone who's a penny pincher, the tone between the two, very different. Literally, even the images, if you close your eyes and I say saver, and then you have your eyes closed still and I say penny pincher, I can guarantee you that the image in your mind, the image of the person that you associate with those two words, very, 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 very different. I want to pose something to you. When I was thinking about this whole kind of thought of fiscal conservatism, and I was thinking about, just the running narrative that most people, most politicians who claim to be fiscal conservatives, the solutions that they tend to give to things, okay? But before I get there, let me tell you something. While I'm kind of transitioning, I'm going to transition from speaking about families and individuals to kind of speaking about business and larger government economies. But when you're dealing with the average American, and you consider that whether they are an unemployed individual who received that extra $600 stimulus, or just the average American who made under who was within a certain income level, who received that $1,200 check and then that $500 per dependent, even if they managed to save any money from any form of stimulus that they received under the CARES Act, today, October 23rd, I can guarantee you for like 95% of those people, that money is gone. That money is gone. How do I know? I know this because, for starters, your high income earners weren't receiving the unemployment benefits. So that takes them out of that equation. Then on top of that, with that $1,200 check and $500 per dependent, those who made a significant amount of money at a certain level, they didn't even receive that benefit. So the people who were really doing super well, they didn't receive any of these benefits. And what we know, looking at the data, the most recent data or data from like the last few months, is that the people who really built savings, well, you had kind of two categories. You had people who were receiving that $600 per week, that additional economic or unemployment stimulus. Some of those people were able to save money. Okay. But they have since they have lost that benefit at the end of July. And for most of them, they have had that lost wage assistance program. Those benefits have stopped, which were only in half. They have used any savings that they have had to kind of carry them over. That is one group of people who were kind of able to save. But in addition to that, most people who got that $1,200 were not really able to save it. They either used it immediately or they had some sort of idea that they would save it. But this whole idea that this pandemic was only going to last, a few weeks, put them in a position where they had to use that money. So at this point in the game, individuals I'm very confident in the assumption, based on the data that I have looked at, that most Americans who have been benefited in some way, shape, or form from economic stimulus direct, they no longer have those funds. Okay. And so when we look at that, it's, literally, and some people were so bad off literally within like hours. And I've seen comments online. They've said, oh, within a few hours, that money was gone because they had to pay all the bills that they were behind. Or some people paid their rent, well, specifically, I've seen like in online forums, some people, what they did, because they just weren't sure of kind of where things were going with the country and when they'd be able to secure employment again, they maybe paid up their rent through January. So, yes, they benefit through January in terms of having their rent paid, but that money was literally gone. That is money that they cannot reuse because it's already been spent and allocated. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. Again, there I go channeling my inner Joe. Look, when we hear fiscal conservatives often talk about the budget, right? Because that's what they like to talk. They like to talk about the federal budget, the federal deficit. They always talk about how we need to stop spending. We can't spend money because the federal deficit. We don't have money because of the federal deficit. Federal deficit. Debt. Look at the numbers of debt going up, 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 up. Let me tell you something that most people who are not wealthy don't know about wealth. You don't save your way to wealth, and the wealthy know that. People who are in superior financial positions, they didn't save and nickel and dime their way there. They didn't say, oh, well, I'm going to stop having my Starbucks every day, and that will give me enough to retire. That will give me enough to be fine. I'm not saying that saving doesn't temporarily kind of improve situations, but long-term and a huge impact, like, again, to take you to levels of not just being financially just okay and barely able to get by, but you can't save your way to wealth. The wealthy know that. The wealthy, they actually understand that sometimes, listen to this. You have to spend money to make money. The wealthy understand that you need money to make money work for you. Case in point. If an organization, let's look at this first we'll look at it in the context of individuals, right? Someone who understands that you need money to work for you, someone who doesn't have a wealth mindset says, you know what? Let's say you have two job seekers. One job seeker, and they both just say have, I don't know, $100 in their bank account. One job seeker is going to say, you know what? hey, I know I need to go out there and I need to look for jobs, but I need to wear this old, outdated suit because I can't afford to spend money on a new suit because that's money that I'm not gonna have. Okay. Someone who was wealth oriented will say, you know what? Hey, I only have $100 in the bank. And I understand that I already have an older kind of outdated suit, but I understand how I will be perceived if I am wearing a newer, more modern, suit. That is part of selling myself to this company. So one person held on to the $100 and didn't spend a dime. I'm not guaranteeing you that the other person who spent the money is absolutely going to get employment because other factors, maybe their resume or how they performed in the interview, but specifically on the basis of selling themselves like in their presentation, they hands down are going to have that going for them, where the person who opted not to spend a nickel or dime is not going to have that working in their favor. Looking at it in the context of an organization, okay, you have two companies. They both bring in the same amount. Their valuations are the same. One company says, you know what? Hey, we're strapped for cash. And yes, we've been doing a lot of research, but we just can't afford to spend money on advertising and marketing. Okay. And, whatever. Then you have another company that says, hey, we have the data. We understand our target market. We understand, our product and services of quality. We're actually going to go ahead and we're going to invest in some advertising and marketing. First company said, customer acquisition costs too much, made excuses. Who do you think is going to be more likely? Not saying guaranteed, but who is going to be more likely to get customers? The company that spent the money to get the customers. I can tell you that from my own personal experience, that period, point blank. And this is having had several businesses. When you don't spend money, you don't make money, period. There are very few circumstances where you cannot spend a dime or spend so little and have massive amounts of success. When I don't spend money, I don't make money, period. In context, when you look at that in relation to the US government, let's give an example. We don't want to, for instance, spend money on extended unemployment federal benefits. Okay, we don't do that. We save money by not spending it on that program. Do we think that people who can't secure jobs are just going to go away? No. So what do? They then have to go to SNAP and get food stamps. They then may have to go and get housing assistance. They then have to go and get medical care on the country's dime. So not only are they getting benefits, you have to pay for administration of those benefits through those three agencies. Do you see what I'm saying? It takes money to make money. It literally does. And so when fiscal conservatives try to sell you on this idea of, deficit, we can't spend money. You have to spend money, but here's the key. You have to spend it wisely. You can't just throw it out there and make it rain to everybody for everything. No, you have to back it up with data. And again, bringing this back to individuals, wealthy people understand, hey, they use money in completely different ways. For instance, I'll give you kind of one example. Let's assume you have two people who have the same amount of income, okay? One person might say to themselves, hey, you know what? I don't have that much house. I'll just clean my own house. But another person may say, you know what? I don't have that much house and I could technically clean it myself, but instead I'm going to pay for a maid. People who are not wealth oriented will say, oh my gosh, you're spending money. You're just, you're spending so much money and oh my gosh, money, 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 money. But people who are wealth oriented understand that, hey, I am paying for peace of mind. I am paying to not utilize my time, which is your most valuable asset, by the way. I am not paying to utilize that time, and time that I could have been using while I was slaving away, just say cleaning the bathrooms or something. I can use that to actually be making money. I can use that time to be bringing in more money. Again, it takes money to make money, period. So when they try and sell you on, oh, we can't spend and we don't have the money, don't believe it, because I'll tell you what, most of these politicians, especially the ones who've been in office a long time, they're wealthy. How many of them clean their own bathroom? I can guarantee you they have a maid. Why? Some of them, maybe it's because they have achy joints and stuff like that, but most of them understand that they need to be utilizing their time in a more optimal fashion. They have a wealth mindset, but they don't present that to you. They don't apply that to you and to helping you. And you need to understand that you are being bamboozled. Now, again, I'm not advocating for just go out there and spend money willy-nilly. For instance, I've mentioned before, California, to me, oh my gosh, in terms of like their spending and all that stuff, for one, taxes so high and yeah, all that stuff. But I understand that they have to have taxes. You can't have public benefit without taxing. Like literally, to me, I almost want to say people who are really against taxes don't call the police. Don't drive on the public road, right? Like don't use anything that has been evaluated and approved by the FDA. Like come on, like your taxes have to pay for stuff, right? So yes, we do need responsible spending, but we do have to spend. Are we telling? And I want you like, and it really makes me want to laugh when I think about it. But by the same logic that these fiscal conservatives try to use with you and tell you that we can't spend money on you and we have to save, why aren't they telling the companies to save? Like literally, and when you think of it in context in relation to the pandemic, we rolled out the Paycheck Protection Program to help companies. Well, if you're fiscal conservatives, why didn't you just tell them to save their way to a better financial future? Why didn't you do that for the Main Street lending program? They've never done that. They never will, okay? I'm going to close this segment with this. Nancy Pelosi was right. Right now, what we're dealing with is a difference in values. It's not that these politicians are dumb and don't understand what they're trying to sell you. They understand absolutely what they're doing. They are doing it masterfully. They are doing it in a way that is for most people kind of going over their heads. They're doing it in a way that makes you think that they are actually drinking the poison that they're giving to you. They're not. Nancy Pelosi was right. This is about values. And they are going to keep trying to get you to not see what they're doing. But it is so evident. And if you don't see what is being done and that Senate Republicans literally value anything but you, it's because you don't want to see it. I don't believe that you were that dumb. I don't know you, but I do not believe that you were that dumb. If you were that dumb, you would not be listening to my podcast. You would not be listening to me. If you were that dumb, you probably wouldn't even know how to listen to me. They're not helping because they don't value you and they just don't want to help you. As I said earlier, point blank, period.